Good afternoon and welcome. We're back on the Ship Show series this week for another episode. I'm Anthony D'Ambrosio, and it's my pleasure to introduce my Ship Show co-host, Jason Brand, our Director of Business Development. And of course, we want to thank Vanessa Fry, our producer, who makes this show happen for us every week, along with Jason. So this week, we have a really great guest on our show. It's a tremendous show. It's what I like to call a master class on warehousing, control systems, and operations. So please join me in welcoming our Vice President of Domestic Operations, Kirk Papke. He leads all warehouse operations while overseeing domestic managed services and brokerage transportation for supply chain solutions. Kirk has more than 30 plus years in warehousing operations, control systems, distribution management for companies like Revlon and Supply Chain Solutions. And he's one of our premier, what I like to call gurus or masters. So again, please join me in welcoming Kirk on the show today.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Anthony. So really am pleased with the opportunity to be able to spend some time and to discuss what I feel is probably one of the most important innovations that I've seen throughout my career that's assisted in warehousing and distribution. And, I like to deem it as the control system or the central nervous system of a warehouse. There's several reasons why companies would look to possibly migrate to some type of warehouse management system. Many of those could be client requirements as they change and get more demanding, controlling cost, controlling inventory. And what I've found throughout the years is that one of the benefits as far as cost goes is that done correctly, meaning understanding all of your current business processes and requirements and clients' requirements, working collectively between several departments in the company, meaning finance, warehouse operations, IT is an important one these days. You really can drive cost improvements. And I've always liked to, when I'm talking with my direct reports around the country, explain to them that, as we do cost improvements and we save dollars in the warehouse, it's a full dollar to the bottom line, right? It's a dollar for dollar savings. And really, warehouse management systems allows you to start down that road. So what's the single most important item of the central nervous system, right? Well, the first item is to evaluate. So evaluating your current processes, your warehouse, the setup of your warehouse, your clients' needs, your interdepartment needs, accounts payable, accounts receivable, purchasing is another very important one. And along those lines, there should always be those operational people that are managing the warehouse involved in every step of this process. Three items really out there that a warehouse management, you want to assure that they do, right? The first one is like directing and enforcing rules that are designed by management. What does that mean? That means once you've evaluated your operations, the management team will work together to set via rules on how product will be recorded and moved throughout the facility. And we'll get into a little bit of the tools that a warehouse management system that helps you do that in a few. Validate the process real time is the second thing. So any warehouse management system should be validating what you're moving real time. Very important in today's world. When you think about it, if you validate that I just got done picking complete an order, I'm sure everybody gets the alerts on their cell phones. It says your order is now being processed, your order's processed, your order's shipped. And quite frankly, then, hey, it's delivered at your door and you get a text to go to the door and grab it. When you start thinking about that, it's the information that's in the warehouse management system that starts that whole process of communication to the consumer or to business partners. The third thing would be is to maintain an audit trail of every transaction that you're doing and make it paperless as possible. So, if you could deploy a warehouse management system and cut the paper down to pretty much one piece of paper that comes into the warehouse, which would, in reality, would be the packing slip that's coming in and the bill of lading that's coming in with the freight. But once it hits inside the four walls of the warehouse, the goal would be to have all the movement recorded with an audit trail and have it paperless. Anthony, you look like you might have a question.
Yes, Kirk, I was. And there was a conversation that you and I and Jason were talking about. And I think you'll probably agree that a well-designed warehouse management system really reduces the operating expenses in a variety of ways. And that's really one of the great things about supply chain solutions, because we help clients see what they never thought was possible, especially when we take down a warehouse for them and we set up and manage an operation as you and your team so incredibly do. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of how that reduces those operating expenses in terms of the enhanced visibilities and the improved management and strengthening of the security and things like that, if possible?
Sure. So the first thing that probably comes to mind would be labor reduction. Let's face it, right? In warehouses, your highest expense is probably labor. And another big cost is space. So on the labor side, it really streamlines your processes and makes them more efficient. So in a warehouse management system, you have the ability to look at your parts picking characteristics, packing characteristics to the consumer, location or storage characteristics, meaning think of it as like, you have very fragile glass items in an area of a warehouse, and then you have just maybe some consumer products that are low damage possibility type items, and they could be stored in another zone in the other area of the warehouse. You should have the capability in any WMS to direct put away to those areas of the warehouse. Directed put away also leads into travel time. So the warehouse management system will allow you to run movement reports to identify what items are moving the quickest and where should we position those items. The biggest key factor in a warehouse management system that you want to make sure that you get right is the item master, because when you load your items in, when you load the item master, that will really tell the warehouse management system how you want that item treated. Do you want it stored in certain zones, maybe refrigerated versus dry goods? Do I need to, on the point of inbound, it could direct you to record certain key bits of information that maybe before you were manually accumulating, like lot numbers, expiration dates, and things of that nature. So from a labor perspective, it knocks down the paper and it allows you to be more efficient in a warehouse, which really is movement in time. The other bigger thing would be is when a good warehouse management system tells you where to go, tells the operator where to go, what to do, and confirm that you did it. Mm-hmm. The confirmation of the work that you're doing at that location could vary to I'm scanning a pallet out, I'm scanning a case out, or I'm going here to pick 50 widgets. Mm-hmm. And you can set it up to go verify I'm at the location and I touched the box, or then verify and scan that I touched every single piece for order accuracy. So there's I could speak to order accuracy and what, 1% of inventory inaccuracy amounts to in dollars. And maybe that would be another.
In a different day. Session. It's a really great topic, but a good, yeah.
But when you really start looking at that of the cost of a return or of a missed shipment, it adds up very quickly. And having the confirmation with warehouse management tools, which are typically could be scanners, tablets, pick-to-light, voice picking, but just having that confirmation improves the accuracy and lowers costs there.
Yeah, and Kirk, what's interesting is I remember once you told us that choosing the right WMS. And it's when people think about WMS, it's more than hitting just a key to determine where your materials are stored. It's really about building the processes that get them there. And that's one thing that Supply Chain Solutions is so great is we've got great people, but you have to have great processes as well, right? So I think there's some key things that you've always tried to tell us about when it comes to companies choosing the correct WMS and those benefits associated with it.
Yeah, so that really comes from when you scope out the entire, at the front end, when you're scoping out the entire need, okay, and there's a needs document. And as you go through that, there are things that you just absolutely need, right? So it's called a warehouse management functional list. And you'll go down that, and there's typically 3 boxes, and it's a must-have, it's a nice to have, and then maybe it's a phase 2.
Maybe in the future, yeah.
Right, and then you go through and you're looking at what functionality of this WMS fits the profile of my warehouse and my distribution. So a good example that Nancy brings it up is that if you're an independent company that's distributing a commodity, say a beauty company, and you're distributing beauty items, okay, you have your own ERP. Some ERPs come with warehouse management systems, but you also have the options to go out and decide your needs, go to the quote process, evaluate, and then make a selection of a WMS that would integrate with your ERP system. You see many gains there as well. And those tend to be a little bit smoother versus in Supply Chain Solutions. As an example, we have some facilities that have 15 plus clients in it.
Sure.
Well, when we looked for the warehouse management system that we're running now, we needed a very vibrant warehouse management system with several different options, because all 15 clients could have different needs. And there's a visibility factor here too, Anthony, that you're looking at real-time data. So as an example, Supply Chain Solutions offers a dashboard that's out there. It's a portal that you can go into, and you can see where your shipments are at, where your inventory's at, if there's any quality issues. Again, this is jumping ahead a little bit, I think, but I guess we'll just have like a total open discussion, which is, for the past 10 years at least, integration has been the key and is a big success for a company like Supply Chain Solutions. So if we see different clients and we're integrated with them via EDI or API, it really allows us to share real-time information with them. You imagine you have a customer service rep from one of our clients on the phone looking at 100 widgets, and what do they want to know is that, do I have all those 100 widgets? Can I sell them? Can they be allocated? Can they ship? Right.
Yeah.
So that's the bigger thing that I'm seeing now is, and again, I have for the last 10 years, is if you can integrate, then you really streamline processes. So yeah.
And one other thing, Kirk, before we talk about some of the control system basics, it's a good gear shift here, because I remember also, because for our audience that's listening, having someone with Kirk's pedigree and his experience and his shared experiences in the industry is a game changer for us at Supply Chain Solutions. So he's always essentially dropping knowledge on our team. And I think one of the things he told us about before was how important it is to link the WMS with your TMS system, with your transportation management system, so your company can form a holistic outlook that extends beyond the walls and the racks in your warehouse. So maybe before Kirk goes in to start talking about some of the control system basics, maybe he could just speak a little bit about how that relationship between the TMS and the WMS works.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. So very important as far as it relates to integration to transportation systems. So what that really allows you to do would be, as an example, if you have freight, say, that's coming in from Asia or Europe, and you're integrated with the client as well as TMS, then all of that documentation flows through those systems electronically, allows the warehouse to auto schedule deliveries so that they can even load their deliveries. They can see when are these shipments coming in? When are these transportation companies picking up freight? It allows for exporting. As an example, if you export to Canada and you're integrated with the TMS can generate everything that you need to export into that country, versus, some companies have a person that's their job and they get every document and they go through it and they, check it and then approve it. The other thing the integration with TMS allows you to do too is, as rates fluctuate, it allows you very quickly to adjust the rates in the transportation table so that you're constantly getting the most recent rates, if you will, while you're processing through the warehouse.
Agreed. And, that's a great perspective. And it makes me think about, I think that really, and Jason and I are so proud of our warehouse operations, as well as all of our associates are at SCS. I mean, we're not perfect, but it's a finely tuned, machine. And I think when you have a well-built WMS that's integrated properly with a great TMS, the employees really enjoy a more efficient task allocation and an autonomy in their roles. And I really think they have a better accuracy in their work. And that in turn translates to an improved supplier and customer relationships. And I think because all of our warehouses are so efficiently run, because of Kirk and his team and our staff, it really helps reduce the delivery lead times and the order accuracy errors. And that means that more customers and partners are going to be satisfied with their orders. And it means we're going to make more sales and develop more business. So I think efficiency helps on both sides of the fence. And I just kind of wanted to drop that in there because I know you're going to want to talk about some of the control system basics to get us back on to where you want with some of those things you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. One other quick thing is we're sitting here talking is you think about inventory accuracy, Anthony, right? So think about if a company is experiencing low inventory accuracy, they're spending a lot of money on either quarterly, yearly inventories. Purchasing might be overbuying because they don't trust the amount they see in the system. So that's all inventory dollars, right? And they're carrying that now, and there's a cost to that. A good warehouse management system will allow you to cycle count on a daily basis on a schedule with results, researching any fallout, and eventually should allow you to get cleared from your accounting departments to say, yeah, we no longer have to do a full physical inventory where we shut down for a week, we don't ship orders, or we shut down for days and we don't ship orders, we don't have receipts, you're working overtime to catch back up. I mean, if you start adding all those dollars in for a physical inventory, it's quite a bit. And that's part of the justification, the ROI that we'll talk about a little bit once we get a little bit farther down. And then also you talked about labor savings. What I will say is this has been my experience. When it's change management, and when you start rolling out with WMS to your associates, there's fear, there could be fear and some resistance. Somewhere between 10 and 15% of those associates, in my experience, might not make it through into the new world of warehouse management systems. One thing to look at there, if that's making people skittish, would be, I've also experienced, though, it's about a 12-month, it could be 12 to 18 months time frame from when you're researching a WMS until you're at full deployment. And most of the time, if I was going to see a reduction in labor, it happened just through attrition versus, having to lay people off or eliminate their jobs. And again, I don't think warehouse management systems necessarily, they can replace people through productivity gains, but really it just changes how people do their jobs. And that's usually that fear that's out there. So, okay. So
one quick thing, Kirk, sorry to take you off track once more, but I think you've mentioned a lot about the warehouse processes, and you've got a unique perspective when it comes to warehouse management systems, because you've been there as we've evaluated multiple of those tools, right? So we had one implemented, you were able to see kind of the pros and cons of it, and then you were involved with getting the next one implemented. And it's interesting. We have so many different clients. We can't meet everyone's needs, obviously. And when we're going through that upgrade, what did you view as the core areas that we had to have, right? Versus that other stuff? Because, obviously at the end of the day, if someone's looking at going out and leasing or purchasing a WMS system, if they don't have the warehouse know-how, it's just going to be a system that has a lot of different options that they won't be able to utilize. I mean, you see this with most, technology out there. You've got the knowledge to understand what of those things we can utilize have value. So which ones, what was your kind of like your core focus as we were upgrading to our most recent iteration?
Several. So the main one was minimum to go live, we have to be able to have the capabilities that our current system had, right? Yep. Because there's always that push of when you're going to implement a new system, you're probably running two systems, and there becomes a time where you just have to make the decision to go. Okay. Really, when we started evaluating, one of the most important things I think for me was I was evaluating the support we were going to get from the provider that we chose. In other words, conference room training, user interface training. I mean, we've been known to, we've got the new system up and running, we've set it up. Now we're going to come in and simulate a half a day's worth of real business through it to make sure it's working. So the focus was the main focus was always when we bring it up, we got to be able to control our inventory, receive inventory, and ship inventory. And typically at the beginning of it, you will gain some efficiency gains through the processes you've changed. It's just a matter of how long that training time is to get all your associates through that, to realize that. You really start to see the payback on a WMS at between the larger paybacks at between 12 and 18 months, because then you've had the time to really run it, evaluate it, and then continuously evaluate that operation to go, we're driving all the way across the building for this. That's incorrect. Or we need another zone to handle this type of product. Or, so I encourage everybody to flexibility in a WMS, rules-based. I can treat things differently. It can handle zone management, lot control. Now, I will say, when you start getting into lot control, expiration date, serial number, recording, that raises the complexity, and it can affect throughput, but in just some industries, you don't have a choice. In the food industry, you just don't have a choice. You're going to have to capture those things, right?
Absolutely.
And so kind of wrapping up, maybe the rest of my thoughts here would be, please keep in mind that when you start going down this road, okay, that this is an operational decision. Okay, this is that you're making here with the WMS. They have to be at the table at all discussions. It's IT focused on integration throughout the process now, because that is a key. If you can invoice faster, you can collect cash faster, right? If the old days of, hey, I'm batch invoicing, batching work up, isn't the best scenario in a warehouse management system. It is constant dropping down, prioritizing, pushing work to the floor, and having them execute and confirm that they did it. You got to use a return on investment model to determine the viability, and you have to be prepared to meet those obligations. So if you're planning a labor reduction, or maybe you're improving your space utilization, because now the warehouse management might be able to congregate items together that can be together, and it can increase the number of either rack locations or floor space that you're storing in. Pick an integrator who understands the operation, not just the software. Ask questions, get examples, make visits. We made 3 visits to a facility that was running our current WMS. And that was just instrumental in one, making the team feel comfortable, and 2, understanding some of the capabilities and how they were applied on the warehouse floor to determine if we could actually take advantage of those. And then you have to, I think, Anthony, you hit on this too, that as you go through this process, you have to make the decision on, okay, are we going to lease the software, buy the software, number of users. If you're leasing, there's usually a charge per user. But yeah, I mean, as far as, as we opened up and said, it really is a central nervous system of a warehouse. I firmly believe that warehouse management systems has allowed me in my career to advance, most definitely reduce operational costs. And at SCS, Supply Chain Solutions, it's instrumental to everything that we do in our warehouse. I mean, we could be setting up anywhere from 2 to a half a dozen clients every month, right? Or we have clients that their business model has changed, and then they approach us to say, hey, can you flex and manipulate your system to handle this, or send us this information now. So
Yeah.
I find it very
And what's
exciting.
interesting, Kirk, is that I remember you once said that a bad WMS can not only cost you money, but it costs you inventory as well. And if it's not stored in the proper environment or used in the best order, there's all kinds of, things that can happen. And I think, the right WMS should really scale with your business without breaking a sweat. And again, that's just one of the great things that we do with Supply Chain Solutions. For all of you listeners who are tuning into the show that aren't working with Supply Chain Solutions with their 3PL and 4PL warehousing, distribution, and management things, I mean, you really want to reach out to Kirk and myself and to Jason so we can talk to you about that, because the processes and the people and the leadership that we have with people like Kirk are just off the charts, and they're gonna bring organization to a chaotic operation. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. I know you might have some more stuff, Kirk.
We do have a question I want to grab.
Go ahead.
I want to
Go ahead,
go
Jay.
towards that real quick.
Apologies.
Okay, so real quick, we got a question. So we're currently implementing SAP and we haven't started using their warehouse module. What would be the benefits of using a system like yours versus SAP's?
Oh, great question.
Deep question.
My experience has taught me that the warehouse management, and again, this information isn't hot off the press, but the warehouse management system as SAP is not as dynamic as a Red Prairie or another larger WMS system. It is very good for if you're a manufacturer and you're doing inventory control and you're distributing or shipping out. It can handle that. But when you get into the more dynamic request, again, Supply Chain Solutions as an example, Jason, has the dynamics to where in our system to where we can shoot out order lines with different characteristics to different pieces of equipment on the floor. So sit down high low, stand up high low, an order picker, a cart, somebody pushing a cart, because the zones have been determined. We can say, hey, Jason, you're on a cart and you're in this area, this transaction goes to you. Where I hadn't ever seen that in SAP, some of that more in-depth options that just make it more flexible. That doesn't mean though that's true, because like I said, it's probably been 3 to 5 years since I really looked at the SAP WMS model.
Nice.
And back then when we were evaluating, we backed away because it just didn't have the functionality that we needed. And of course, they'll tell you that they can
Build
do
it.
it, they'll write it, right? They'll create
Yeah.
it, but at how much, right? So
Oh
that's where
man.
you go. That's where you go back to when you evaluate your operation. You have your must-have,
Mhm.
right? Nice to haves, and maybe phase two, and then
Yep.
you got to look at SAP and go, does it fulfill all my must-haves? I
Yep.
must have a packing slip. I must be able to contact the consignee when whatever that is. Yep.
Before I get on the next question, I quick want to say something about that. So that's such an interesting point because, you know, you mentioned how you really have to evaluate the support of the WMS before choosing it, right? And there's so many out there. A lot of them will say, oh yeah, we can do that. But when you get into the nitty gritty, it's a huge bill to build some of these things. Or we get a new client, just the building process specifically for their needs on some WMS systems can be outrageous. I mean, you could probably speak to that a little bit, Kirk.
Yeah, sure. I mean, make sure that you get included, you get your support, and that you get your implementation included when you're getting costing and pricing for this from your vendors, and really have them script out what that support means. Most that I've worked with in my career, you know, they're very willing to quote you, you know, what 40 hours of support as you're going through it. But you really want that more defined and script out of, okay, it's going to be this many hours of setup, this many hours of conference or piloting, this many hours of, and then after go live, it's very important that you have a system in place that identifies any roadblocks, and that your provider has that support mechanism with you as you're going through it to be successful. They're usually called like an account manager or a subject matter expert account manager. And I can tell you that we have a really great relationship, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're not calling ours a couple times a month for sure. To your point, Jason, of, you know, we've got an opportunity and a client's asking us for something and we're going, whoa, okay, we can do that, but let's check to see if we can. Now, the other thing to watch there too is get your upgrades included. So at the front end, when you're negotiating, once you make that selection, try to get some upgrades included. Make sure that your maintenance and support is in line, right? At a reasonable cost for what you're going to need.
Nice. Okay, love that. I've got one more and we're over time. I'm going to ask it because it's a little bit off the wall here. So they are asking, how does your WMS system help with our procurement roles? And I'm not exactly sure.
So I can help with that. So I view procurement as ordering products. So that's somebody purchasing or something, right? So the warehouse management system helps in many ways. So one way it would is that you can record down exceptions in a good warehouse management system. So you might, let's say you have packaging issues with your vendor that you don't know about, right? That's going to identify it because they can enter that in as their, right? Doing it live. At ours, we take pictures, we log it, boom, and it can go directly to that client to say, hey, we noticed this, right? So I think that's one way that it could help them, as well as trusting the inventory count, so they're not overbuying or they're not getting beat on the head because we ran out of something for an important client. Soft and hard allocation allows them to look down to go, well, what's on hand, what if that's been allocated, and really what do I have left that's available to sell or to put on order. Some ERP systems only have 2 statuses, so that helps them as well. It also helps them in procurement because the other thing, and I didn't mention this, is that as when you select a warehouse management system, you very well might have requirements from your suppliers to improve your processes, meaning maybe some barcode labeling on their cases or their pallets. We spent over a year on one implementation weighing and measuring every unit of measure for every supplier so that we had each an interpack, a case, and a pallet, so that when that product came in and I had a pallet, the warehouse management system knew the dimensions and immediately said, boom, here, put it here, take it here and put it here, it'll fit, right? As well as you have to understand the dimensions in your storage types in your warehouse as well, and have that all loaded into your location table, obviously. But yeah, I think it gives them a little bit of peace of mind. They can trust the numbers. It might cause them to enhance some packaging that maybe historically might have caused some inaccurate receiving. It allows them to get quality information immediately from the inbounds if they're seeing things there. Yeah.
Kirk, I love it.
Kirk, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, just real quick. All I want to say is when we went through our pre-meetings with Kirk, we've got about 7 hours of awesome content, and we're going to trickle it out next year with Kirk. So Kirk, you're signing up for more because we love having you on the show.
Oh yeah, it was
Appreciate it.
tremendous, everyone. And to sum it up, there's so much to think about when you're selecting that WMS, and like Kirk said, you want to make sure it has the right capabilities and it fits your business model and your culture, and it gives you the innovation you need and the functionality and the versatility to grow and thrive. But if you really want to simplify your whole operation, you'll just reach out to Kirk or Jason or myself and allow Supply Chain Solutions to, help you realize what you never thought was possible when it comes to your 3PL, 4PL, and warehousing distribution solutions. So it's been a great highlight to have Kirk on the show today. We've only scratched the surface, and we're so excited to have him back next year. Jay, back to you for the final words.
That is all we've got for the day. Kirk, thank you so much for joining, and thank you all for listening. We went a little bit over, but if you want to send this to anybody else, we're going to provide the link after the show, and join next week.